Welcome. I am Carol Vinci, and this is the next in the series of ADD and ADHD as it impacts businesswomen's lives of certain generations. This is for people who know we are ADD or ADHD, people who are reluctant to explore the possibility of the struggles with the symptoms of ADD and ADHD, and for people who by choice or chance live and work with those of us who exhibit the symptoms of ADD and ADHD. This is a very emotional subject for me to discuss. I seriously considered moving it later in the program. However, I thought it was so important to our health, our effectiveness, and our sanity that any delay would be cowardice on my part. The question I am posing here is, are you living in a constant state of fear? Fear of being discovered. I would have admitted to killing somebody before I would have admitted to ADD. It took me 5 years after I knew I had ADD to be able to speak about it openly. That was the impact it had on me personally. The shame of struggling with what appears to be simple tasks. I was never going to pass the white glove test in my house. And clutter is a constant challenge. Overwhelmed. I lived in isolation on weekends to recharge my batteries so I could appear normal when I showed up at my corporate job on Monday mornings. I knew I was not fitting in with my peers, but had no idea what to do about it. Despite a clean bill of health from my internist, who I saw for 15 years, there were ongoing health issues. But from his perspective, when I turned 40, he gave me permission to lie about my age because, as he said, none of the medical tests that he was doing showed any change over our 15-year relationship. In fact, my adrenals were not functioning. My cortisol levels are still not acceptable. And my sleep apnea was only discovered recently by a dental hygienist. Now, before you assume that I was avoiding my regular medical checkups, I had the best health coverage that a corporation could offer. And I lived in the city that had the best medical services in the world. And I did not avoid any of my checkups. Yet no one connected the dots. In business, I was sent off to a 2-week class for a break in my sales position due to a premature midlife crisis. I was in my 30s. There was no further discussion on the behavior that prompted that comment. 10 years later, a colleague made this comment. Your anger is so close to the surface that I am constantly afraid that you are going to explode at any moment. I did hear what he said because I remembered it 40 years later. But I didn't hear what he was saying. I didn't take the time to pursue a discussion. to take time to have a cup of coffee with him, or to see a therapist to discuss these comments. I am sharing this very personal information about myself, not to leave you with doom and gloom, but to encourage you to look back over your history and connect your behaviors. Take time to journal. They may at the time have appeared to be isolated incidents, but there is a pattern, and a pattern that tells, in my case, a horrifying story of not dealing with something that impacted all of my personal relationships and my potential to succeed further in my business career, even though it was very successful. I often describe my discovery process as peeling an onion. Each layer reveals something new. I now meditate, not quietly for the 30 minutes that the program requires, but about halfway through, I am inundated with all sorts of creative ideas, which I log. I started doing yoga and found it energizing. My shoulder injuries suspended my regular practice, but I am looking forward to returning when my shoulder gets stronger. None of my journey has been instant soup. It has taken patience, persistence, and the support of many people who contributed to it with encouragement and support to get me through my doubts, my fears, and in some cases, criticism from people who indicated that discussing this would limit my opportunities for employment as I continue to work. I am here to support you if you choose to take your first steps and at the pace you're prepared to progress. There are, the expression one step forward, two steps back. Walk slowly, but never walk backwards. Please share this with anyone you know who is living in isolation and fear with their struggles. This can't be done alone. And there are lots of people who will support you as you start peeling the onion. I welcome any feedback and comments on how I might continue to support you and your community. Thank you. Oh, fuck. Damn.